If you've ever been married to a narcissist, or if you're in the middle of trying to leave one, there's a question that probably haunts you. Did they ever actually love me? And I want you to stay with me today because the answer I'm going to give you is not a simple yes or no. It's something more important than that. It's the truth. And the truth, as painful as it is actually what sets you free. My name is Michele Paradise. I'm a trauma-informed therapist, and I've been working with survivors of narcissistic abuse for quite a few years now. I am one myself. When I tell you that I understand what it feels like to look back at your marriage and question everything, I mean that from the inside out. So let's talk about why a narcissist gets married, because it is absolutely not what most people think. But before we do, if you're a subscriber, please hit the notification button, a little bell, so you don't miss any of my upcoming YouTube videos. And if you're not, please hit the subscribe button and the notification button as well. So let's get started. Here's the first thing you need to understand. A narcissist never actually wanted to be a husband or a wife. They wanted to have one. That distinction sounds subtle, but it is everything. For a narcissist, marriage is not about partnership or intimacy or building a life with someone they love. Marriage is social credentials. It is proof to the world that they are a good person, a successful person, someone who has their life together. Think about what marriage represents in our culture: the proposal, the ring, the wedding day, the family photos, the Christmas cards, the couple that looks perfect from the outside. Every single one of those things is a source of what we call narcissistic supply. External validation, applause from the world, and a narcissist needs that applause the way the rest of us need oxygen. So they pursue marriage, not because they want to love you, but because having you makes them look a certain way to the world. And that feeling, that reflection of themselves as a good partner, a family person, a respectable member of society, that is what they were after all along. Now, here's where it gets really painful. There's no real emotional connection, no genuine consideration for who you are or what you need, no curiosity about your inner world. What there is instead is a relationship that revolves entirely and exhaustingly around their self-image. Everything you do is evaluated through the lens of how it reflects on them. When you shine, they take the credit. When you struggle, they take it as a personal affront. When you have needs, those needs become an inconvenience at best, a threat at worst. And this is the part that I see survivors struggling with the most in my practice, because it doesn't look like abuse from the outside. There are no visible bruises. There is often no screaming or obvious cruelty. What there is instead is this slow, relentless erosion of your sense of self. You were never truly seen in that relationship. You were managed. You were curated. You were kept in a role. And that role had one function: to protect and maintain their image. I want to say something now that I know is going to land hard for some of you. It was never a partnership. It was a performance. And you were cast in a role without ever being handed the script. You didn't audition for it. You didn't agree to it, but slowly through love bombing and idealization and the intoxicating early days, you were shaped into the perfect supporting character in their story. Your job was not to be loved. Your job was to protect the image. And the moment you started stepping outside that role, the moment you set a boundary, asked for more, stopped performing, started healing, everything changed. The mask slipped because you were no longer serving the image. You had become a threat to it. This is why so many of my clients describe the moment they started healing as the moment that things got worse. It's a thing. It's a fact. Because they were right. They did get worse. Not because healing is dangerous, but because the narcissist could feel control slipping away. Now, I want to talk about something that very few people address, and that is what happens when a narcissistic marriage ends. Because here's what most people expect. They expect the narcissist to be heartbroken, or at the very best, or very least, to feel something real. But what you almost always see instead is rage, chaos, legal warfare, a smear campaign, a new partner within weeks. Why? Because a narcissist facing divorce is not grieving the loss of you. They're grieving the collapse of the identity that the marriage gave them. That is not heartbreak. That is ego loss, ego death. The person they presented to the world, the devoted partner, the family man or woman, the respectable spouse, that identity is under threat. And a narcissist will go to extraordinary lengths to protect it. This is why they fight so hard in divorce proceedings, even when there is nothing logical to fight over. This is why they rewrite history and paint you as the problem. This is why they rush into the next relationship so quickly. It is not about you. It was never about you. And I know that sounds like it should make it hurt less, but for most survivors, it actually makes it hurt more because it confirms what you always feared, but could never quite let yourself believe. And this brings me to the most important thing I want to say today. Your grief is real because what you lost was real. Even if what they offered never truly was, you loved genuinely. You showed up fully. You gave that relationship everything you had. The hopes you carried into that marriage were real. The future you imagined was real. The love you felt was real. None of that disappears because the other person was incapable of meeting you there. In my work, so much of it draws on the teachings of Dr. Gabor Mate, and one of the things he has helped me understand more deeply is this. We don't just grieve people, we grieve the version of ourselves that existed inside that relationship. The self that hoped, the self that believed, the self that kept trying. That is profound loss, and it deserves to be treated as such, not minimized, not rushed. Not explained away with a label, held with compassion. If you are somewhere in this journey right now, whether you are still inside the relationship or in the middle of leaving or years out and still trying to make sense of it all, I want you to know this. The confusion you feel is not weakness. The grief you carry is not failure. And the love you gave was never wasted because it tells you exactly who you are. You are someone who is capable of real love. That is not a liability. That is your greatest strength. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And leave me a comment below and tell me where you are on your journey, because I read every single one of them. So all that remains is for me to thank you very much for coming on this journey with me today. And please stay safe, because safety is everything in a healthy relationship.